Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 973 of our daily content grind. Hey look, shoutouts didn't make it a week this time, but thank you anyway. So, it is time once again to delve into a previous year of Transformers. This time we are going back to 1993, the first year of Generation 2. Remember, I previously stated that I wasn't sure if I should include all of the repainted G1 figures in this list because those were technically toys available in 1993 that are technically better than some of the brand new releases. That said, it has always been a rule in these lists, as well as all of my previous best of the year lists before this series, to only include things that were brand new molds for that year. So we're going to stick to that. We're also going to stick to a rule that I've always had with these lists, which is not to determine the winner simply by price point and size or gimmick. It's how well they carry themselves for the price you pay, which means a cheaper figure might be a little bit higher up on the totem pole than something that is more expensive. Though, generally, they do come with a whole lot of better stuff, so, there's just some things that will have to be in a certain order. So, that said, 93, interesting year. We've got the last of the Euro G1 exclusives before the line reunifies, the beginning of Generation 2 in America, the beginning of Transformers trying to revive itself. So, we're going to take a look at all the brand new toys and see how they did with the best toys of 1993, starting with number 10. And this is going to start with the basic Autobot cars, because I do want to give a nod to those, because they did do some pretty cool figures, even if they are small and inexpensive. There's some neat looking ones. Now, believe it or not, if you know this channel, you know my love of Rapido. It ain't him. He didn't make the list. No. I'm giving number 10 to Scram. Look at him. Look at him. He's just a really, really cool looking bot. He is a blue Corvette Stingray, so he does kind of give off Trax vibes, but he is doing a few things his own way. The exposed motor, the different deco on him, and then you get to robot mode. And even with a similar head color, he still sets himself apart from Trax very, very well. It's just a really nice shape and color for a Transformer. He just looks nice all over. Compared to some of the other Autobot cars, he tends to look a little bit more complete. He tends to look a little bit more solid, and it's just a cool look overall. I mean, and it's one of the few where I don't really see myself having a preference between the Euro version and the US version. While the black windows do technically look better and more realistic, I don't like how it shows the tampograph on the windshield. The pink window in the European version kind of works better with that. And it actually works well with the purple striping also. It's a nice figure. Simple, but simple can be very effective. And I do think that this does a really nice job of putting out a fresh toy that is still a very familiar thing to Transformer fans, but doing it in its own unique yet classic way. It's just kind of an all-around, just nice Autobot for 1993. On the other side of the battlefield, it was all about Jets for their basic toy offerings, and again, most of them are kind of samey, most of them are kind of very simple, and even in their price point, I wouldn't really call them that exciting. However, one that kept catching my eye and I'm fascinated by is Terradive. So for starters, I like the color scheme a lot. The white and the black is pretty simple, but it makes those hits of green and yellow that much more impactful. I like the overall look that the toy generates. I like the weapon and the fact that you can store it away underneath the vehicle mode. That's cool. What really gets me is that it's a Decepticon jet with a silhouette that you've really not seen before. The high shoulder pylons and no visible windows no visible wings in some positions. Like this one, they're just folded to the back, but it's different than just like being stuck out the sides like some of the others in his size class are like. What gets me here is a unique transformation, more akin to transformations I've seen on GoBots than Transformers, oddly enough. To the point where those green legs, those go underneath the wings. Those are the engines. That's different. That's very different, and that catches my eye. So yeah, from the look of it, you can definitely tell something different and unique is going on. But then you get to actually transforming it, and he feels very different to most Jet Transformers, especially at the time. So maybe a little basic, but stands out for the uniqueness of the time. End up really, really liking him in the end. 93 is all about certain gimmicks that kind of dominated Transformers both in the US and in the UK, regardless of where the toy originated. And two of them were water squirting and color change. So the two working together actually managed to create something of a way of showing real-time battle damage to your toys. Kind of a cool idea. And some of the ones that do it really well are, for instance, Deluge here. Now, you might think I'm talking about Drench, and that is because the Euro G1 bots got really, really screwy when they came over to the US for Generation 2. They rotated the names around. For you Street Fighter 2 fans, it's what they did to the boss names in that game. It's like everyone just kind of like twisted around, like you take this name, I'll take this name. But I'm putting specifically Deluge on here, the European version, because I actually like the color scheme better than the US. The US uses a two-tone green, which normally would sing to me, but it's a little too dark, and I think it muddles the toy a little bit too much. Here, the blue and the seafoam green work together really, really well. It keeps that pattern distinct and very noticeable. I actually like the hit of pink from the translucent plastic. It adds a pop to the character. You know, and overall, it's just a really cool design. I like the Dome Racer design, right? And I like the idea of using that foil for his actual water cannon. A lot of them did, but sometimes those water cannons ended up looking kind of weird. Not gonna lie, they ended up looking kind of weird sometimes. This one is at least interesting. Just this big, heavy double barrel cannon makes for a unique weapon accessory. So yeah, again, nothing terribly complex, but it changes color when you spray it. You change another color when you attack back. That makes for a pretty dynamic little set of toys. And I really do like the look of Drench. Oh, I'm sorry, Deluge. To stay in the UK for a second, however, we can talk about that other one. We can actually go and talk about the original true Drench. This is very Euro G1. This is very much in that like really weird 90s coloring, the ones that you think of when you think Generation 2, that were actually happening more in Europe than they were over on the US shores. But man, I really love how this guy looks. I really, really do. I like the maroon. Again, we're talking about a Dome Racer, so I have a type. I can't help it. He does have the color changing. He does have the water spraying, and you can see worked pretty well. It's just like a very long barreled rifle that integrates into the vehicle mode. There are very, very weird ones out there that don't do it quite as well as this guy who looks like more like a Decepticon sniper. But beyond that, I like the translucent green. I like the hits of blue and all that. I like the head sculpt that looks like he's wearing like this bronze Jason Voorhees mask. Like there's something to that gives it a little bit more character than you would expect for such a blank face. It's just a cool, cool looking figure. And one that I had the pleasure to own despite its origins. I have no idea why they changed the names around. I really have no idea why they changed the names around. There's a weirdness of Generation 2 and that naming convention kind of goes along with it. But yeah, this toy never came out in the US. You had to be in the UK to get it, or spend quite a bit to import it now. Either way, I thought it was one of the better ones that came out of Euro G1. I mean, it's a neat, unique looking figure, and I like it a lot. Now, when a lot of these Euro G1 toys came over for Generation 2 in the US, they didn't really change them a whole lot. Some of them are really just a change to the windshield, like Scram. The translucent pink becomes translucent black. So you get pretty similar looking figures, and you kind of have to know your stuff to really figure out where it came from. However, there is one that departed from the original color scheme so much that he really just puts a different vibe on the toy altogether, one that I much prefer over the original maroon version they did in the UK. We're going to talk Jetstorm. I still don't know why a car is named Jetstorm, by the way. I don't care. This is a really cool looking one. So you've got a heavy dune buggy alt mode, and I love the way they decoed this. Like the mold itself already lends itself to this, but with all the new sticker detailings and colors, it looks like an RC car. It looks like something I would take onto like, you know, like a dirty gravel road or like in like a dusty backyard somewhere and just jump hills with, you know. It looks like that kind of toy. And then you transform it, and you know, normally when you have a vehicle like this, I'm expecting something a little bit thinner. I'm expecting something a little bit, you know, on the scrawny side. But no, Jetstorm ends up looking wide-shouldered and kind of beefy for like how like fast his vehicle mode seems to imply. You know, there's a little bit of a disconnect between how heavy one looks and how light the other one looks. But you know what? That kind of works. I mean, it subverts me a little bit. And I do like the overall look. The black and the blue work really, really well. It's a very cool looking figure overall. And yeah, just a fun piece altogether. I believe it's got the water squirting gimmick too. And it definitely has the color change, because I saw a whole bunch that were a little off from how they're supposed to be colored. The color change stuff can go off sometimes. But when you've got a vintage one like this that seems to have all the coloring the way it should be, it's a beautiful thing to see. It's a really cool looking piece overall. Yeah. Never had it as a kid. Kind of regret that now. So I mentioned that there are other gimmicks that dominated this time, and we've already seen the color changing and the water spraying toys. Well, in the UK, they had their own gimmick that was kind of a big deal for some of these cars. And on the Decepticon side, they were called Trackrons. On the Autobot side, they were called Lightformers. Whatever you called them, Iron Fist is a pretty good representation of one. For starters, I do like the beige and blue color scheme. It's one of those, like, it shouldn't work, but it kind of does kind of color schemes. Beyond that, yeah, the fact that it's a Humvee. This is long before the Humvee became cool, by the way. You know, like this, you know, it was quite a while before this became like a very common vehicle to know about. But either way, it's just a really cool looking bot all around. Very, very heavy looking vehicle mode, very cool looking robot mode. And then you get to the actual Lightformer gimmick. So in this case, there's a button on the big weapon that can be used as like a monopod battle emplacement. And when you click the button and look through the weapon itself, look through the scope, there's a rotating image, almost like a Viewmaster, where it will just quickly zip through these images, in this case of an enemy, and little lasers will be drawn on top. So it will look like you're actually firing a laser at the enemy. There's also usually a part that moves. In this case, that big ammo thing on top will rotate. That's a pretty involved gimmick. For a toy that's already pretty good, that's a really involved gimmick to throw around. You know, and this is one reason why I like big gimmicks that are their own thing, because it doesn't interfere with how good the toy is, and then you just have this really interesting gimmick that goes along with it. Big, bulky, cumbersome, makes no practical sense, but it makes for a fun toy. Now we flip to the other side. There are other Lightformers and Trackrons that actually have these gimmicks, but honestly, the way that they work and the way that they look just kind of put me off a little bit, and it didn't make sense, you know? Like, it doesn't make sense for one of these gigantic weapons to be on top of a jet, for instance. So I don't think it comes across as strongly as some of the ground-based options that gimmick had available to it. Which means we have only one direction we can go in, and here we go. It's the worst Transformer name of all time. It is Calcar. I still don't know what a Calcar is. That said, doesn't look too bad. Again, we're in the Euro G1 colors, which we fully admit I have a bias toward. I kind of like when they go so bad, they become kind of cool and interesting again. So we got a pink car, green and blue highlights. Okay, I like it. Might not be everyone's preference. But that said, it's also just a neat little car figure that has a bit of a unique transformation to it, especially in 1993. On top of that, you do have a very menacing head sculpt, which was kind of rare for toys this size. He looks like he could be a big bad in something, even though, he's just like a basic little car former. And then again, you have the gimmick, where, yes, it's still just a really, really cool gimmick. I want to say in this case, the barrel actually rotated, which, considering it's a chain gun, makes a lot of sense. So the gimmick works well, whether you are looking through the scope or just watching it in play. And just overall, just a surprisingly nice figure. And surprising that we never got this kind of stuff in the US. I don't know if the gimmick made it, like, expensive to produce, or if they just didn't like the styling of those toys, or whatever the reason was. Calcar was another one we never actually got officially in the US, which is a shame, because I do think it stands out, gimmick or not, color scheme or not. It's still a nice figure all around. It wasn't just the UK that got their own unique molds this year, though. Nope. There's a situation that Hasbro just had to pony up the money to make a brand new toy for, and you know what? Maybe it shouldn't be this high. Maybe the Lightformer and Trackrons should have been a little bit higher on this, because this one is kind of basic, but it's just classic, and it's still fun to me. Let's talk about Megatron. Gotta talk about the Megatron. We will fully admit, it is a very simple figure. For such a large Transformer, it is still very much in the 90s level of engineering. It won't be until next year before we start really pushing the envelope as to what a Transformer truly could be as an action figure. So until then, we have to judge it by the standards of 1993, in which case 4 points of articulation was just fine. That said, it's still a gigantic transforming tank. We didn't get vehicles this large in Transformers ever before this point. You had like Jetfire and all that, but like nothing that was just like a tank, nothing that's like a normal vehicle. And it was cool. It was really cool. You had the electronic gimmicks, which, yes, were silly, but it was cool that the toy could do them. And then you had, again, a really fun launcher gimmick, where, again, you had this little tab you pull back, fire a missile, and then pull the tab back, drops another missile in with gravity, fires again. I love the rapid fire missile gimmicks. You will figure that out when we get to 2 and 1. Regardless, yeah, simple for its time and necessary for its time, because we've been over the toy law thing, but it definitely stands as an iconic piece in Transformers. Even if it's never done correctly, the original is still somewhat iconic, and yeah, it's just like the hallmark of Generation 2. I still like the figure. Call it simple, whatever. I still think it's a lot of fun. I don't think there was any doubt we'd have to go to Euro G1 in the UK in order to find the top toys of the year. They were just still producing things that went into their take on Generation 1, which means they were willing to push the envelope both in design and color, as well as in gimmickry, a lot more than Hasbro was, who was trying to be very cautious with the return of Transformers to toy shelves. Meaning they got away with a whole bunch of stuff that you don't normally get away with. So we get to now talk about the Obliterators, starting with Pyro. The leader of the Autobots at the time in the UK. It's an interesting vehicle. It's an airport crash truck. Like literally, like if there's an accident with a plane, this is the truck that comes in to handle the emergency. It's an all-in-one emergency vehicle. And it's pretty cool. It's a super unique vehicle to actually make into a transforming toy, but it kind of works. It's kind of cool. Again, deco is nice. I like the bright reds. The black and the dark blues kind of work with it. The hits of yellow. And then the interesting thing, so like the idea behind Obliterators was half of the vehicle detached in order to become a battle emplacement. And on Pyro, admittedly, might be a little bit simple. Just kind of unfolds and holds some guns up. But it does make for a nice play pattern. And again, you have a really cool multi-missile launching system. like the Gatling gun style missile launcher. Love to see that too. Yeah, it's a cool figure. It's a really cool figure. It's got a lot of gold plastic. So unfortunately, this is a toy you have to handle with a great amount of care in the modern day. But this is one. It's also one of those where, man, I really wish they would actually make a brand new one because of that. But I don't think they ever will, because what else are you gonna do with him? I know it's kind of one of those lost and forgotten G1 toys. It has a lot of merit to it. There's a lot of merit to it. It's a fun toy, hampered by stuff that doesn't age well. And it's not so far into the Euro G1 like super bright colors that I don't think it's going to be that offensive to anyone today. So yeah, I would love to see Pyro or Spark, given his other name, because I don't know if you've noticed between Flash and Iron Fist and Pyro, Euro G1 didn't really care about comic book trademarks at the time. But however he's named, I really kind of hope we get another one because it is a nice design. I would love to see another run with it. That only leaves us one place to go with number one, and honestly, like, this was a no-brainer. This was a no-brainer. The second I saw this toy was in 1993. I knew he would be the top of the list. Let's talk about Clench. Yeah, this one sits very proudly in my collection because I absolutely love the figure. Yes, it is Euro G1, all of the neon you could ever ask for. It's the bright yellow, it's the bright green, it's the bright pink. He's got them all. He's got them all. He has the trademarks of a Euro G1 Decepticon with bronze in his face with that big heavy gas mask Darth Vader looking sculpt. He's got sparkles in his dark blue plastic. Even his dark plastic has like shine and glow to it. This guy is just a fashion piece. He's just showing off. He has to be noticed. That said, it's a very unique little transformation scheme to him and an overall unique look. I like how big and heavy he ends up looking in robot mode. And then there's his battle emplacement, which not only one, looks a lot better than Pyro's, and number two, cooler feature. So you know the pullback trigger on Megatron that lets you fire a missile and then you pull it back again, you hit the button again and fire another missile? He can do the exact same thing, except without the button push. You pull it back, it fires a missile. You release it, pull it back again, fires another missile. And he has two chambers to do that from, so he can throw a lot. He can throw a lot at you. It's one of the cooler missile firing gimmicks I've ever seen in G1. And I'm not someone who particularly likes missile firing, but I like this one because it's a really, really cool function. Easy to break, I should note, but still a really cool function. So yeah, even if you take out the super vibrant color scheme, Clench is still just such a unique looking shape and design. I'm kind of shocked. There's been multiple Transformers, High, Prime, Ultra Magnus, that could have done this design justice if we got a modern one. Unfortunately, aside from a BotCon repaint, we really have not seen the light of day. And it's a missed opportunity because Clench is a very, very good toy. In my opinion, the best one of 1993. So there you go. Obviously, because I'm leaving out the G1 repaints, this could be a very debated list. And obviously, I am favoring certain designs over others because it's a preferential thing. But I'm trying to be as fair as I can here. I'm trying to name the 10 toys I think are best for their price back in the day. So feel free to debate the list in the comments section below. Please don't start arguments. It's all just opinion. We're here to have fun. They're toys, for crying out loud. Regardless, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.